welcome to the Non-Obvious Diversity Summit. I'm your host, Frank Gruber, the co-founder and co-CEO of Established, a consultancy that helps organizations with their innovation, startup, and communication strategies. We also power the Startup of the Year, which is a community and a program that hosts an annual summit, and we invest in some of the top companies that come out of that program via Established Ventures. I'm also a venture partner with the VC firm NextGen Venture Partners as well, so do some investing in a couple of different places. Today, I'm looking forward to discussing investing in diverse teams, something that we strive to do at the Startup of the Year program. And we look forward to, and you can see it through some of our portfolio. They include folks like ShearShare, companies like ShearShare, Clickly, Genie, Periomics, just to name a few. All of those were female-led, and we've also got some minority and veteran-led companies as well. And it's, recent studies suggest that increasing diversity in of your leadership teams leads to better innovation, improved financial performance. So today we're going to be talking about the huge opportunity to invest in diverse teams. Team members, with diverse backgrounds bring, diverse solutions to the table, and it leads to more, better decision making, more informed decision making in the process as you improve your results. And it's not just me saying this. There's actual other folks as well. The Harvard Business Review found that diverse teams are able to solve problems faster than teams of cognitively similar people. So there you have it. It's not just me saying this, and we're looking forward to getting a perspective of both the investor and the entrepreneur today. Before we get started, though, I want to say some special thanks to the team at Non-Obvious Company for putting together such a fabulous summit focused on such an important topic. I also want to thank my own team, the Established team, for helping assist me as well as we pull this together. And before we begin, I wanted to take a moment to reflect upon the history of the indigenous lands that we currently call home. While we meet today virtually everywhere, right? All of us are occupying spaces that carry a powerful legacy of the people, diverse people and unique cultures that were there before us. So through the acknowledgement, we affirm that our deep commitment to improving our understanding of America's shared heritage and recognize our collective responsibility to improve the bonds between all nations. We're grateful for the opportunity to meet you everywhere or wherever you are, and maybe on your journey towards a more diverse, inclusive society as we all work together at that. So if you're following along and you're thinking, oh gosh, he's talking a lot probably at this point, you can join the chat. There's a chat window here, as well as if you're on social platforms, you can get your little fingers going and put in the hashtag non-obviousdiversity, and that's where the conversation is going to be happening outside of the current window you're in. So join the conversation. We'd love to hear from you. Love to try to incorporate some of that. So I'd like to get started with the session now with introducing our non-obvious panel of very obvious experts. First off, we've got Marlon Nichols from Mac Venture Capital. He's the founding managing partner at Mac Venture Capital, an LA-based firm investing in technology companies across sectors and industries with average check size of about $1 million. Over 80% of the startups that are in his portfolio are led by women or diverse founders. Marlon has had previous successes with an enterprise software company, which he experienced a successful exit. He's also a Kauffman Fellow, or former Kauffman Fellow, went through that program. And he helped invest. He was an investment director at Intel Capital, where they launched Intel's $125 million diversity fund. So welcome, Marlon. Thanks for joining.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Looking forward to all your perspectives here. Next up, we've got Allison Capon. She's the founding partner of the W Fund, a VC firm investing in tech startups led by women, Black, Indigenous, or people of color, LGBTQ, and founders over 50. So really interesting set of people that she's investing in, obviously very diverse. So she's primarily focused on seed and Series A companies and committed to investing in 70% of her investments into women-led startups. So really great that she's looking at all these companies and making a difference there with investing. She's also the founder of Women Who Tech, a global program making it easier for women entrepreneurs to raise capital. So I can't think of anybody better to be investing in women than somebody who's been running a program that's helping folks raise capital for women raise capital for a long time. She's also one of the most influential women in tech. Multiple different sources have said that, and as well as top 30 women entrepreneur to follow on Twitter via Forbes, and has held numerous leadership roles within technology and social media. Welcome.
Thanks. Super excited to be here and talk with you, everybody.
Yes, definitely. All right. Next up, we've got Courtney Caldwell. She's the co-founder and CEO or COO of a beauty tech startup called ShearShare. the largest provider of on-demand salon and barbershop space rentals worldwide. ShearShare has raised in the recent round raised $2 million in the latest round, and has raised over nearly 44 million already. And they've got a great group of investors, which include Revolution's Rise as Rest seed fund, Backstage Capital, Jalen Smith of the Dallas Cowboys football team, Thaddeus Young of the Chicago Bulls hoops team, and many others. She was our 2016 Startup of the Year winner, and we invested through Established Ventures as well. So excited to have her join us today. She's one of the 30. She actually was the 33rd African American female to raise $1 million in venture funding or more. So pretty fabulous there, and has been also named on a number of different lists, including Inc. Magazine's 2019 Female Founders 100 list. Fantastic. Welcome, Courtney.
Frank, it's always good to see you. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation.
Of course.
All right. So now that we may have one late addition, Travis Halloway from Solo Funds. We're trying to get him involved as well. He's the co-founder and CEO of Solo Funds, a mobile lending exchange that has created an intermediary for predatory payday lending system. So hopefully he can join us. We can tell you more about him when he does, and we'll get that included. But let's kick things off. We're all here now. Let's get a kind of an investor perspective. Tell us a little bit more about the types of investments that you make and why the topic is so important to you, and kind of how you approach finding the best, most diverse teams and companies. Who wants to kick this off? Marlon or Allison?
I can kick it off.
Okay.
Great. So yeah, as I said earlier, just super excited to be here and talking about one of my favorite topics, funding the future of tech. So for the W Fund, we know that the next Jeff Bezos is going to be a woman or underrepresented founder, and we intend to fund them and see them through exit. So while we're a generalist tech fund, we really focus on investing in startups that are solving a very big problem in an underserved market where the funder has deep domain expertise, and we're very excited about platform plays that can quickly scale to large networks. So that's just a little bit of our background.
Fantastic.
Sure.
Marlon?
Yeah, and at Mac, we're a seed stage fund based in LA. With our thesis, we coined it cultural investing, which is looking for shifts in or emerging shifts in human behavior and cultural trends. And just because you're looking at shifts and changes in demographic and all those things, you have to keep a keen eye, a focused eye on diverse communities. And as such, we're proud that our portfolio is comprised of 81% women and people of color, specifically Black and Latinx founders.
Wow, that's fantastic, Marlon. All right, so we're going to also include Courtney here in this conversation. Since you've been talking to investors, talking about investing in diverse teams, from a founder's perspective, can you tell us your experience in raising your rounds, and what is there any issues that you ran into, or kind of tell us a little bit more about the experience?
That's a great question, Frank. Honestly, when I think about diversity, I first think about our internal team, right? And so we haven't had an issue adding team members, adding employees who represent America. We have a very, very diverse team. And I honestly think it's because the community that we serve, and I feel that beauty and barbering is the best industry in the world, of course, but the community that we get to serve every single day, we kind of already have diversity woven into the fabric of our DNA, right? So whether you are a licensed hairstylist, you're a barber, you're a braider, you're a nail technician, makeup artist, massage therapist, etc., you already are a diverse and very kind of unique unicorn. We get to serve people who are male and female. We serve people who are non-binary cisgen. We get to serve people who are young and some who are more seasoned, people who have 2 years experience versus people who have 30 years experience. And so that diversity really does, cause us to focus on that on a day-to-day basis. But from a perspective of investing and being able to go out as a founder and invest, the conversations early on were very monochromatic. And what I mean by that is I learned very quickly that you really have two types of investors. You have the investor set that chooses to invest in companies that maintain a sort of America or an economy that they wish to see. And then you have investors like Allison and Marlon who choose to invest in companies and the next biggest thing that represents the reality of America. And so as a founder, it's incumbent on us to be able to go out and look for investors like a Marlon and an Allison to be able to lock arms with and say, hey, let's march towards this goal.
That makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. And you've also seen a lot of pledges and proclamations out there that, folks that are out there, probably see corporate from the corporate side as well as the venture side. But we're seeing the numbers are not changing that much. That's what you're saying. We're going to do, invest in diversity. I'm seeing with our two investors here, they are actually, walking the walk and that they're talking. But you're also seeing folks that are saying and not doing it. So, for example, the amount of investment in women-led companies has gone down this year, which is sad, right? So venture funding for female founders is the lowest quarterly since 2017, according to PitchBook. So let's discuss this. What do you think some of the barriers are for real change happening in the industry?
I mean, one thing that I'd like to talk about, before I started the W Fund, I launched Women Who Tech and the Women's Startup Challenge that we partnered with Craig Newmark on for Craigslist. And I will tell you that, for years we have been talking about this issue, about the lack of funding for women founders, especially for Black women founders and Latinx women founders. And what we really have seen over the years, honestly, has been a lot of talk and very little action. And we call that ally theater. When something big happens in the space, Black Lives Matter and all the protests that happened, the Me Too movement, like all of a sudden, all of Silicon Valley and the major VC firms come out and they're like, yeah, we're going to do something about this. And we're going to make these pledges. And then nothing happens. And we have seen this year after year, movement after movement, and it is incredibly frustrating. And I think that's why many of us, have decided that, like, if Silicon Valley is not going to change like the traditional VCs, then we're going to have to come in and we're going to have to change this system that is just completely broken and just not optimized if you don't look like a white straight man who graduated from Harvard or from Berkeley or Stanford. And so, until we start to be the change that we want to see and make those changes, it's not going to change. And we can't rely on old school VC to do it, because we have been historically, and we have put the pressure on, and they're just not, they just keep looking at the same types of startups. So it's up to us to come in and change the system and have it be what we want to see, which is obviously very representative of this world. And so that's what we're excited to be doing.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. Marlon, did you have anything to add to that? Or you?
Yeah, sure. I'll exceptional people live in a space of discomfort and doing things that don't feel natural. But the reality is that most people in this world are not exceptional. And so we're going to fall back to the things that we're most comfortable with. And when you're talking about hiring folks or investing in folks, et cetera, you're always going to look to invest in or hire yourself. Because you know where you've come from, the experiences that you've had, the schools that you went to, the community that you're in and you're comfortable with. And so it's just easy to invest in folks that have those shared experiences. And that's what we see typically in this industry. That said, as you said in the beginning, Frank, there's a lot of evidence, a lot of objective data that we should not be doing that we should embrace diversity, because it creates outsized outcomes, both for investments and for companies. But again, the reality is that people are going to invest in folks that look like them and come from places that they come from. And so what that means to me is that we need to have more capital in the hands of people that look like the demographic makeup of America and the world. and that falls back on the fund, the capital allocators, right? So the pension funds, the university endowments, the fund of funds, et cetera, they've got to make sure that their capital is flowing in a favorable way to diverse fund managers, so that those diverse fund managers can then allocate capital to diverse founders.
That makes a lot of sense, Marlon. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're seeing when you're talking to some? I mean, are you having to go in and educate some of these, endowments and things when you're trying to raise, you're raising your own funds? Is that something you've run into?
Sure. Changing hearts and minds is a difficult thing, and you have a finite amount of time to raise funding. So similar to what Courtney said, it's about identifying those that get it early, and going after them as potential partners, right? Showing them the value and the historical track record that we have that suggests that we're capable and effective fund allocators or capital allocators. So what I've done is focus there. Who wants to work with me and do it that way, and then share our numbers and our outcomes with everyone else. And then it's a marathon. It's a long game. Once they start seeing that they're missing out on these opportunities, they're gonna find a way to the table. But life is too short, and fundraising cycles are too short to go and change hearts and minds.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So focus on the folks that are going to support you, right? Or you think that they will support you because they have a similar mindset. Makes a lot of sense. So we actually let's welcome. We've got one of our latest additions here. We mentioned at the top here, Travis Holloway from Solo Funds. Welcome. I'm glad you could join us today. You're the co-founder and CEO of Solo Funds, a mobile lending exchange that connects lenders and borrowers for the purpose of providing more affordable access to loans under $1,000. You've raised some funds, right? So you're one of the fastest growing fintech companies in the country, and you raised close to $5 million in 4 rounds. Welcome. Oh, and I should mention also our 2020 Startup of the Year, which is really exciting, and we're going to invest as well. So Travis, welcome.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Frank. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, and so I'm going to kick a question right over to you that was kind of asked to Courtney already. What's it been like for you going out and raising funds as an entrepreneur? What's it been like for you, I guess, to kind of we're talking about diverse, basic diverse teams and whatnot. From a founder perspective, have you seen any issues with raising funds? Have you had any, do you have any stories you want to share or thoughts you wanted to share about your experience in raising funds? Because you've done a great job doing it.
Yeah, I mean, we're super excited. We actually just closed our Series A, which we'll announce next month. But with that said, it's been a journey, and what we're most excited about is that we've been able to have some success, and we've been able to build a strong network. My co-founder and I. But with that said, it's been tough, and we constantly have this feeling of being a little bit underestimated. Obviously undervalued, and it feels like we have to do 10 times more just to get a look of one of our counterparts, and that's been extremely frustrating at times. But on the flip side, I think it's actually made us stronger as a company. And I think what we really have to do as diverse founders is take some of the inequities in the venture world and pour that back into our business. Let it be a chip on our shoulder, because at the end of the day, when we finally get to the point of raising, the capital, we're typically more structurally sound businesses. We've proven more of product market fit. We tend to have more scale when we actually finally get the venture dollars. So it's kind of a benefit in disguise, and it forces us to be better entrepreneurs because it forces us to do more with less. Because we're never overfunded, we're always underfunded, and we just become more creative and more versatile in our approach. So with that said, I would say that when I look across the board and I look at other entrepreneurs who look like me, who are doing phenomenal things, I'm consistently disappointed that they're probably not getting the notoriety, the recognition that they deserve. But on the flip side of it, what I have tended to see is that the companies who stay in the game long enough, and the founders who stay in it long enough, tend to get funded. It's the ones who, stop early or forced out of the business early, who don't really see that light at the end of the tunnel. But again, I really truly do feel like the ones who stay in it long enough ultimately figure it out.
Oh, that's great, and good advice for anyone listening. Don't give up, right? Like, it's going to take a little while. I mean, you already know, when you're out raising, you have to go pitch 100 people, right? And you're going to get a lot of no's. So, but great to hear a perspective that, obviously you've done it, you've seen the landscape, and you can obviously attest to the fact that you can, and with not just you but others, the folks that can succeed don't give up, right? So don't give up, keep going. And I think I want to shift it over to a kind of a positive side, because we talked a lot about kind of the negative, how maybe some of this isn't happening, but you're a shining star, and obviously Courtney as well, for raising funds and moving your companies along. Let's talk about the positive side and what gives everyone hope on this session. So I think open this one up to everyone who wants to jump in and kind of share your thoughts on, like, what you're seeing out there and what gives you hope in folks that are from both the startup side and the investor side.
I can start. Okay, go ahead.
I was going to say something that definitely gives me hope is I'm a part of various groups of female founders, whether it be BIPOC or whether it be just Black female founders who are in tech, right, who have been VC backed. And so those conversations that are happening in those sandboxes, if you will, there's so much support. Like, it feels like the network that we had no idea even existed before is expanding and getting wider, and people have no problems making introductions to, a Marlon, or making introductions to an Allison, whereby before it felt like those doors were kind of closed off. Secondly, I've seen a lot more female founders decide to go it alone, and they say, you know what, I've gone to the 105th meeting and had the 104th no, and so I'm going to just self-fund myself and continue to keep those outsized outcomes for myself. And as understandably as that is, it's like, gosh, I know that this founder is, super smart. They own their market. They know more about their space than anybody else. If they had the right amount of funding and backing, they could take over the world and really, drive and accelerate that kind of growth. And so, part of me is happy that they're choosing to do something for themselves. And that's sometimes a very difficult decision to make. But on the flip side, going back to what Travis was saying, some people just do not give up. Like, they have, a point to prove, and they're just so very passionate about what it is that they're doing every day, where they're going to make this thing or this company or this tech platform a success, whether or not someone, writes them a check. But I'm very, very hopeful about the network being more and more expansive, and people being more and more willing to make those conversations and introductions, whereby before we didn't see that, 4 or 5 years ago.
Right. That makes sense. That's great. That's great to hear. All right. Who wants to jump in next?
I can jump in next. I also wanted to, this is going to be a negative and a positive, but it's something that Travis said that I think a lot about. Is he said that he had to work 10 times harder, and he is absolutely right. He probably had to work 100 times harder than a white guy. And that's just the reality of it. And I also feel that, we're in the process of still raising our fund. And the other day on Twitter, and I'm not kidding you, that a white guy announced that he was raising a rolling fund, and another guy came in and said, hey, I'm going to help you raise that. And this was all public overnight. I swear to you, he came out and said that he raised $31 million for his fund. And this is what happens. Listen, I don't know the guy personally. I'm sure he's a wonderful guy. And, he does come from, he's the CEO of a great startup. But that does not happen for Black people, for Latinx people, for women. That does not happen. And so I want us to really recognize that, how much harder we have to work for that. But at the same time, even hearing stories like this, I am just so excited about all of the emerging fund managers that have been rolling out funds over the last few years. People who look very different and want to do things radically different than traditional Silicon Valley has done over the years. And that gives me hope. That just really excites me about funding all of these kick-ass founders who have been doing their startups for so long, and there's a whole new group of people that of these funds that are just really excited to fund them and work with them and support them, and not just be that check, but actually, be that support system for them, and that excites me.
That's great. Marlon, Travis?
Yeah, I can, as an investor in solo funds, and an investor in Travis and his co-founder Rodney, I can definitely attest that they had to work 100 times harder than similar companies. And we can make assumptions on why that is. But yeah, that's something that definitely needs to change. I always try to attack problems from the source, right? And I've spoken a little bit about this at the beginning, where it's really about the LPs. And I'm encouraged because in the past you had when a tragedy occurred, and it was relevant to a minority or diverse community, you'd always see the announcements come out and then they'd go away. And this time around, I'm encouraged because while the announcements came, and promises were made, I'm seeing some of those promises fulfilled, right? In our fundraise, we were able to close on Goldman Sachs, right? Their first seed stage fund investment off of company balance sheet, right? We have a number of other corporate investors that we'll announce shortly, but that made these kinds of pledges and are following through. And they're not these $1 million checks, right? We're talking $5-10 million checks for $100 million fund. So they're meaningful, supporters. And I think we've got us endowments as well, and we've got to see more of that in order to get things to change. And I am encouraged because folks are actually putting their money where their mouth is this time around.
Oh, that's great to hear, and congratulations on raising that as well and getting those folks on board. That's pretty phenomenal. Travis, go ahead.
Yeah, for me, I'm encouraged by just seeing more diverse fund managers, and seeing these funds actually, be secured. One of our other investors, Impact America Fund, just raised one of the largest fund as a minority led or women led, call it Black women led, fund. And I'm really encouraged by that because now they can do more. And while Marlon can sit here and tell me, or talk about how he's seen Solo have to prove more, I've also from the sidelines watched him have to prove more. And I think across the board, there has to be access to capital from LPs into these minority led and women led funds, so that they can kind of push their mission forward. And I'm really excited that the funds are there, but I want to make sure that the capital also finds its way to those funds so that they can help companies like me earlier. And what I'm also pretty encouraged by is the fact that, the circle of founders who look like me is relatively small, and we tend to know each other. And if we don't know each other personally, we know each other by name. And I'm starting to see more collaboration amongst, my peers, where we're sharing information. We're letting, each other know what funds are more open to, conversations and actually put their money where their mouth is. We also are getting creative around, how do we raise capital? Whether you go a non-traditional route, whether you go the traditional route, how to do it different ways. And, just some of the complexities of raising, right? Because some of the hurdles and the potholes that early founders who may have looked like me hit, the more information we share, I shouldn't have to hit those same, walls and potholes, if you will. And then people who come after me should not have to hit those either, right? So we should be able to navigate and get to where we're headed significantly faster. So, that's really encouraging to me, and I'm super excited that I'm in a position now to give advice and pay it forward.
Oh, that's great. Thanks so much, Travis. And I was just thinking about your background, and maybe because we want to try to offer some actionable things for folks to listen to. They're listening to this to take away. In both, this is for both you and Courtney. What's the kind of, are there any non-obvious like things that maybe people don't think about right away that that where your background actually helps you? Whether you're raising funds or creating a company or whatever, that kind of shows the we want to come out with some actionable things. Is there anything we haven't talked about, we haven't thought about, that maybe people are listening haven't thought about, that where your background actually plays to your advantage?
Yeah, I can jump in here. I say this all the time, so it's nothing that hasn't been recorded probably before, but I actually do feel like your background and primarily being a diverse founder, because that's the lens in which I view this space, is extremely helpful. Right? There's certain ideas that come to individuals based off of their background that other people may not be thinking about. And I think that's a competitive advantage in many ways. I take my company, for example. Like, I grew up in neighborhoods where the only way to get, money was the check cashing institution on the corner, or the payday lender, or the pawn shop. And when you think about inner city communities, you think about rural communities, they tend to both be financial deserts, they tend to be food deserts. And if you grow up in the suburbs, and in more affluent areas, you're gonna view the world from a financial perspective very differently. And I think that background, along with having an actual background in finance, gave me two perspectives that allowed me to kind of marry those two experiences into providing an opportunity for the underbanked and the underserved. But I definitely do think your background plays a big part, and it allows you to be a subject matter expert on things that someone who may have went to Harvard or went to Berkeley may not understand, and you can actually educate them and show them that there's an opportunity where they may not already see one.
That's a great point. Great point.
Yeah. There has been a lot of talk around earned secrets and superpowers and things like that, right? And I think by and large, lived experience is undervalued. And that's exactly what Travis was speaking about, particularly as we see, this major demographic shift happen in this country. We've got to start focusing on solutions for what will be the majority, and what is already, a group that has significant spending power and influential power. So I think it's almost idiotic to ignore that group and not focus on the challenges that they're living through every day. And it's just like, to me, it's just common sense. Like, if this group, I think the number is like 3 trillion or something like that, in terms of spending power, is out there spending things and putting their influence behind things that are nice to haves, not necessarily needed. What can you imagine what would happen if you put something out in the market that they actually need, and that it resonates with them? Like, even more of their dollars are going to go there, even more of their influence is going to go there. So it's idiotic not to focus there. And the best people to solve those challenges are the people that live through it. Again, it's that lived experience, that earned secret. So and it matters on the investor side too, because you got to be able to recognize it. Right, when it comes across your desk, if you're not familiar, you might put it to the side, and you just cost yourself a multi-billion-dollar opportunity.
Totally agree. And Courtney, I think I wanted to ask you that as well, because you guys found an opportunity in a space that you're very familiar with, that I don't know a whole heck of a lot about, and I know we ended up investing in you as well. You were start of the year, but can you tell us a little bit more about, obviously one of your superpowers, I think, is the fact that the salon and barber shop space so well. But then how you've actually used that to kind of help others, right? Especially through the pandemic.
No, for sure. Yeah. So, my husband and I, beauty and barbering has fed our family for 30 years. He's been a licensed cosmetologist and barber for that long, earned his doctorate degree in professional barbering cosmetology. And as we're running our own award-winning salon in Dallas, Texas, this was something that it was our own problem to solve. And so, just like you heard Travis say, non-traditional, or I'll say non-traditional founders kind of organically have to solve for their problems in a non-traditional way, whether that be solving for their own issue or whether it be trying to go for investment. Ty and I, neither one of us are technical co-founders. We sit in the heart of America in Texas, where most people don't think about tech startups that much, not yet anyway. And, we decided that we could do this thing because we, again, come from the space. Like, no one has to know more. No one knows more about our space than we do. Just like you said, Frank, you guys chose to invest in Share, but you didn't know anything about the Stylus Fine professional workspace. And we always told you, you don't have to know everything about our space. That's our job. And so we'll teach you and educate you as much as possible. But our goal is to try to help accelerate the economic mobility of licensed cosmetologists and licensed barbers. And after the pandemic, I don't think any of us would have assumed that COVID would have been a tipping point. The way that stylists are choosing to work, they're completely reimagining where they're working, how they're choosing not to sign long-term contracts or work by commission and truly become like a solopreneur or like a business unit of one. And we're trying to give them all the B2B tools that they need, starting with space to work, because that literally sits at the beginning of the stylist life cycle, but give them access to all those B2B tools that they need, that we already know that they're going to need, but provide that on an on-demand basis. So, if you need a barbershop suite to work out of, why not be able to rent that by the day? If you need professional liability insurance, why not get access to that by the day? We've just launched a brand new product with our friends over at Lloyd's of London. That was a 2-year conversation in the making, where now, again, another pioneer and effort from Share. Stylists are able to purchase professional liability insurance by the day for just $5, and it gives them up to $1 million in coverage. And so when you think about the other tools that you and I would typically receive just being in corporate America and showing up day one at a job, here's your bag of tools, here are all your benefits, here's access to healthcare. Those things are missed when it comes to people who serve in, industries like ourselves. And beauty and barbering, 70% of the people that we serve every day are actually independent contractors. So why not be able to give them access to portable health benefits and easy ways to file their quarterly tax payments, and that professional liability insurance that's so important, and retail sell-through. These are all business needs, whether they are a business unit of one or a team of 5 or 10. And so at Share, that's our goal, to be able to give that to them and meet them where they are, which is on their mobile device.
Wow, that's fantastic, and obviously much needed in that industry. So congrats on that, and appreciate you sharing those insights and that story. We're getting to that point where we got to kind of start winding down here. I know it seems like it's gone so quickly here. So I wanted to kind of make sure that we had some non-obvious insights or actionable items that the listeners out there watching us can take away. I kind of thought of a couple as we were talking. You guys said them, so I can repeat them, and you can help me help me reword them, I guess, if I didn't get it right. So first off, there was one around like going after supporters that will actually support you rather than going after folks that you're trying to change their minds. I think, Marlon, you mentioned that, and it was mentioned a couple of times. So changing people, can't change people's hearts or minds. So I think, that's an important one. Is anything else to add to that?
Yeah, just to be clear, it's not that you can't change people's hearts and minds, right? Like eventually, the data and experiences take hold, and those things happen. My point was more focus on those that are already aligned with you, because you don't have a lot of time. But so I mentioned the Goldman Sachs investment earlier, right? That came out of a new program called Launch with Goldman Sachs, which is a program dedicated to diverse founders. And they reached out late 2019 to talk to me about joining an external advisory board that they were setting up for that. And wanting to see the change in the world, I accepted it and helped to recruit others to join that advisory board. And as we did that, we were able to have really frank conversations around what's missing in the industry and how we can actually change it. And one of those points was more capital needs to flow to diverse fund managers. And as gaining their trust, being in the room with them, we influenced them. And now they're investing in funds, as well as supporting entrepreneurs that are building companies, right? So while for what's immediately in front of you, say your fundraise, focus on those that are already aligned, but you still have to do the work outside of that to get other folks to join that group of those that are aligned.
Yeah, so it's almost like two different categories, right? There's folks that if you're trying to raise right now, you don't want to necessarily try to change those people's minds because you don't have enough time. But in the long game of life, I guess, in the world, things are changing, and you can make change if you work at it through joining things like the advisory board that you just mentioned, or there's probably other opportunities for folks out there to join different groups to kind of help move the conversation along and keep it going.
Yep. Great.
So you mentioned you actually took one of the other points, which was get more diverse fund managers out there to help, as well as changing kind of, get more LPs and endowments and whatnot to invest. So that kind of hit all the top three right there with your point there, Marlon. So I think the other one that we heard was playing to your background to find opportunities. So you can, those that are startup founders out there, you have strength in your background. It's a superpower. Just use it. Get out there and use it. Another one would be just help each other, I think is a big one. Anything else you guys think we should add to this list of kind of actionable, non-obvious insights?
There was a non-traditional way we were looking. Oh, I'm so sorry, Allison. Go ahead.
No, go for it.
I was going to say, one of the ways that we were looking to get funded, again, being a non-traditional founder, was actually going back to the relationships that we had established even prior to entering the startup world. And so that meant that we went back to our old alma maters and found out that some of those universities actually have grants available for alumni who are choosing to become startup founders. So that's something I never would have imagined. I think if both UT Dallas and SMU had some sort of innovation fund. And so if you just go back to the people who knew you way back when, there may be some kind of connection point that they can help lead you to.
That's a great point. And thank you for bringing that up. Leveraging your network, looking for other types of capital. Grants are a good one through organizations. There's a lot of those popping up every day, new ones, I feel like. There's government actually has a lot of funds that they're investing into startups. They're looking for diverse companies as well. I know the AFWorks group, or AF Ventures, has been investing. They're funded by the DoD, right? So they're actually investing in companies that will actually further their missions along. NASA iTech is another one. They're looking to find companies and get them in front of chief scientists at NASA, which could turn into contracts, which is in some ways sometimes better than getting investment, right? Because you have a customer now. So great point. Thanks for bringing that up. Yep. Anything else we want to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing, and Marlon was talking about it as well. It's one of the things that we do when we talk with LPs, and I also encourage startups to do this too, is when you're talking with LPs or investors, they're in the wheelhouse of making money. This isn't about charity or altruism. There is hard ROI around backing underestimated founders. And I think that one of my biggest takeaways for startups or even emerging fund managers who are raising a first fund is to really hone that underserved market that you are focusing on and building, and showing the ROI to investors of how they're going to make, honestly, a ton of money. And I think that is something that we really just have to drive home, is focusing on those numbers, focusing on that ROI, because at the end of the day, that's what investors care about. They are in the wheelhouse of making money.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Make it an economic argument, right? And frankly, one of the things that that's going to drive an LP's decision to invest in a fund is unique deal flow. And if you have access to a group of founders at types of companies that others won't have access to until after you invest and you introduce it to the market, then again, that's a superpower, and you got to lean into it. The last point I would add, and I think it's something that Travis said on the founder side, is just the collaboration, right? I think, and Allison, shared that Twitter example as well, right? I think in the diverse and both ethnic and race and gender diversity, like fund managers side of things, we got to do more of that, right? So once you have an LP relationship, like it's not a bad thing to share that, right? these endowments, these fund of funds, they have capital that they need to allocate. And if it's already allocated to you, you're in the system, and all you need to do now is to perform to continue to be in that system. Share the wealth so that they can meet other incredible, diverse fund managers who can also come into the system, et cetera.
You're here, more of that needs to be done, because not enough. It's been so close. People have been like, on the founder side too, like when founders get investors, they also are like, no, I'm like, I'm holding it so close to me, like as if like these investors don't have a ton of money to invest elsewhere. And so I think I'm really looking forward to that. And I am seeing some change, but I can't wait to see like more radical change in terms of sharing, because I 100% agree with you.
Like it's crazy, right? I mean, as on the GP side of things, right? If Travis introduces me to a great company, I'm happy about that, right? I'm thankful that he's done that. Just think, wouldn't LPs be the same way if you introduce them to a great fund that they can add to the portfolio? You're adding value in more ways.
Like that's how the White Bro Tech Network works, right? They're all like doing this for each other behind closed doors, and it's like now we all have to do that for each other and grow this network. So sorry, Frank, I hope you don't take any offense to the white.
Oh no, no, not at all. Not part of the Bro crew. But I did want to mention that we do need to wrap, but I wanted to kind of reiterate that collaboration. So create your like crew of collaboration or group of helpers, because that are a part of your like army that you're growing and working with. And so it could be, like you said, it could be other startup founders if you're a startup. It could be the other investors that are doing similar things, because there's no lack of there's going to be some of these endowments and whatnot are going to invest in multiple things, right? They're not just going to do it in one place. They need to diversify themselves, right? So there's going to be opportunities. So I think help each other is a big one. And then the one that was also heard that I wanted to wrap on is don't give up. It's going to take longer than you think. It's going to take longer than because of your background. It's going to even take even longer. So don't give up, because you're going to get there. I mean, if you stay at it long enough, you're going to get there. And I think finding that network and that group of collaborators will help with that. So before we wrap, I want to make sure we get everyone's contact info if anyone can connect with you, and then we gotta wrap this up. But I wanted to thank you all for being here and being a part of this great conversation. So let's just do a quick round the horn. I don't see you right now, so just who wants to start? Courtney, maybe? Where can they connect with you?
Yeah, if you want to get in touch with me directly, at
Courtney@shareshare.com.
Right. Okay.
Oh,
where they can
go to our website. Go to
Yep.
And follow us on Instagram, ShareShare.
Perfect. Travis?
Yeah, I'll go next. You can follow me on Twitter at Travis Holloway. Holloway is my last name, 1 L, HOLOWAY. At Solo Funds on Instagram, at Solo Funds on Twitter, and www.solofunds.com.
Great. Thanks so much, Travis, for joining us. Allison?
Yep, sure. You can find me on Twitter at Women Who Tech. Feel free to DM me. My DMs are open. You can check out our fund, wrule.vc.
Thanks so much, Allison. Really appreciate your insights. And Marlon?
Yeah, you can. My personal Twitter is at Marlon C. Nichols. Our fund's Twitter is MacVentureCap, as well as Instagram. And if you're a founder that wants to get your company in front of us, the best way to do that is going to our website, macventurecapital.com, and then contact. And we have a form where you can just enter your information, and we review everything that comes in through that channel and get back to you in a timely manner.
Thank you so much, Marlon. Really appreciate all your insights and for doing what you do. And thanks everyone for watching today, and to our panelists and to Non-Obvious Company for pulling this all together. What a great group, and also what a great summit. If you like this topic or other topics like it, we're covering a lot of those topics this week. There's voices from all genres, genders, and geographies. And you can find out more about these fascinating conversations if you go to on the internet, www.nonobviousdiversity.com, and you can watch some more summit sessions like this. Also, our official summit hashtag, as I mentioned at the top, was nonobviousdiversity. So join the conversation online. Thank you again for joining us. Until next time, I'm Frank Gruber, and remember, always stay non-obvious.